about it in Julie Roy's articles, but like this was a sexual relationship. He groomed you, like he made all of that okay. Did you ever in that time think, well, when is she going to die? Like, did you ever wonder, like, well, when are you thinking that prophecy will come true, because this is going on and on? And did you have moments of going, oh, I don't think that this is right for me to be doing this?
Just years after, I've married the most amazing husband. I have 4 stunning children as humans. And I remember literally as I would drive by, because he actually put me up in 2 different apartments, because the first apartment people were coming by. So he then got another apartment to meet up at. And when I would be driving by, it would be just, again, in the back of my brain, but I'm like, Diane never died. And will I ever tell that part of my story? She never died. And it just, but then the gratitude.
So I'm going to pause it there, because this is and also a reaction to what he's sharing and what's being spoken right here. This woman is a brave woman. She was originally Jane Doe and has now come out publicly with her name. And I just want to say thank you so much for being brave to come out of, come out of being Jane Doe and share your name publicly, so that way you are able to put a face to your story. I thank you and I honor you for that, because there are many other women out there in other ministries that have stories that need to be told as well, and have stayed, as a Jane Doe, which is okay. I pray that the Lord will give you the boldness, and in His timing and yours as well, to come out and speak boldly and unashamedly of what you've endured in certain ministries. And yes, I am going to be talking about a specific ministry, but these issues didn't happen in a ministry. Not that I'm aware of, but it happened as one was a teacher. And yes, possibly even a youth pastor. So let's continue.
Of Jesus. You got me. Jesus, you got me. Because it's through the years that I started to realize more and more that Mike was a bad guy. But it took me a lot because we just had such this other view of him, utterly other view of him. The world did. And no one would oppose him. Everyone in unity thought this way of him.
Wow. And what's she talking about? She's talking about the prophecy that Mike gave her, that Diane would die, his wife would die, and she would marry him. And Tammy Woods was given the same prophecy. And there are 17 different victims of Bickle in that Firefly report. You should go read it. The gift of prophecy has been so utilized to spiritually abuse the body of Christ that by wolves in shepherd's clothing. And it's been a dangerous thing. I was telling somebody recently, we just, and maybe I'll tell more of our story. I think we've told our story in different ways, in different times, or my story at times throughout our podcast. But, we just left a church that we were plugged in. I mean, like, I was doing stuff with the worship team. Like, people would ask us, like, are you guys even undercovering? I was like, dude, I was, like, locked in, like, first 2 years just sitting on the back row. Even though I'd had a ministry where I'd preached over the years, the Lord just led us to get involved in this church. We sat, didn't do anything 2 years, and then God started to connect us with people within and had opportunities and did little ministry things. But point being, we were in a church for like 5 years faithfully, and little did we know that there were spiritual abuse allegations that had gone back by a decade. When we had gotten involved in this church, had no clue, against this pastor. And
so there are similar experiences from the church that I just came out of, which you guys are all familiar with by this time. There are allegations, not just in V1, but from Road to Life, when they were pastors at Road to Life. And even allegations of when Mike was a teacher. And there was evidence that was brought out a few years ago. And I'm going to go through this video a little bit more because Blaze is going to give an encouragement. And then I will share with you all the screenshot and some information. So let's keep going.
I had no idea. And the thing with this type of stuff is there's information control. People don't want you to read the stories. People don't want you.
That's right.
People don't want you to hear the information because they call it, and I'm going to touch on something here, by the grace of God, Lord help me. They call it the spirit of accusation. They call it gossip. They call it slander. But the reality is that this gentleman who had been the pastor for many years of this church used the God told me, he said that more than anybody I've ever heard in my lifetime. Literally. And you know, I've been in the charismatic movement since 1999 when I went to my first charismatic event or whatever as like a 16-year-old kid. But this guy used that phrase more than anybody I've ever heard. Well, it comes out that they were doing all kinds of crazy shenanigans in backroom meetings with people, cornering people, breaking them down through prophetic counseling, like separating spouses from each other, making them not trust each other, saying that their spouse is Jezebel, just crazy stuff for 10 years.
If you've experienced this under View Uncovering, I am asking you to say, yep, that was me. It's going to take some courage and some boldness to say, yep, they tried to separate my husband and I. They called one of us a Jezebel. They took us through counseling. Oh yeah, that happened.
And you know what actually caused that pastor to be confronted properly? It wasn't a Matthew 18 process. It's kind of like what Ray Curry says, which I really like. He says, you don't ask for a meeting with a wolf. If there is a wolf devouring a sheep, you don't say, excuse me, can I speak to you call the assistant of the wolf. Hey, Mr. Wolf's assistant, can I speak to Mr. Wolf privately about this? You know?
Yeah, and that's one of the things when I came out and I started exposing things with V1 that I was learning about. That was one of the things that people would come to me and ask me online. Did you do Matthew 18? And what people fail to realize is that people did do Matthew 18. And they were treated very poorly when they attempted Matthew 18. And so instead of going directly to Mike and Josh and the others, we decided that we were going to go to those whom Mike claimed and told his congregation was his oversight, was his covering, so to speak, his accountability. And I've made videos on that, so I'm not going to labor over it, but we have yet to hear from them, and I've kind of moved past that. We're not going to hear from them, but we decided instead of going to the abusers to go above them, and even then that didn't work. So here we are, right?
It's like when you recognize a wolf, you have to confront the wolf and you have to rescue the sheep. I wouldn't even say that it's mostly confronting the wolf. I would say it's ripping the sheep out of the mouths of wolves, and it's sounding the alarm. Mm-hmm. Sounding the alarm. Sounding the alarm. There's a wolf. There's a wolf. Oh, we're in the back somewhere. No, he's in the pulpit. Mm-hmm. He's in the pulpit. He's prophesying to you. He's telling you that God is telling him things for you to do. He's giving the word of the day, the word of the hour, the word of the year.
Oh, do you know who does the word of the day every single day? The word of the year every single year? How many words so far has the prophetic leaders of V1 done so far? And have they addressed the spiritual abuse issues outside of attacking and saying people have mental illness, and calling people Jezebels and many other horrible things? Oh, spirit of accusation, like he said.
Please hear me. All wolves that are in shepherd's clothing are not just in the charismatic movement. There are many of them that are cessationists, that are Bible-believing, King James carrying, like perfect Baptist alliteration in their sermons. Wolves. So and even spiritual abuse does not just come through a charismatic movement. There are many that got their Reformed theology to the T in their spiritual abuse and controlling and manipulation used through scriptures instead of prophecy, but through scriptures, twisted scriptures to control and manipulate and to change and to direct people. So I know there's a lot of people that are anti-charismatic, that are anti-prophecy, that say, well, that's the problem. It's not. And then there are others that would say, because I would point to the very other movements where there's spiritual abuse and ultra-reformed, and then there's sexual clergy sexual misconduct in those same movements. So no, we're not anti-prophetic or anti-doctrine and Bible. We're anti-abuse.
Amen.
We're anti-wolves.
Amen.
Jesus says, beware of these teachers, false teachers and false prophets. They come to you like doves. They come to you like sheep, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves, and they seek to tear the sheep apart. I want to address something else too. This thing is so strong right now, the exposure, that there's so many people that are getting exposed, and I think a lot of it, I would say this: the process of exposure. This is my encouragement to any whistleblower out there. Go to a trusted and respected journalist and go fast. Go now. Go yesterday. Okay? I understand it's scary. I understand that there's a lot of implications. And I'm not telling you that you have to come forward. Not every victim has to come forward. Some victims will never come forward. And I actually understand that. After talking to some victims, I understand why they would never want to come forward. I understand that. But I also see the fruit in the lives of those that do come forward, and the fruit in tearing down idols of false ministries and false ministers that are still in the pulpit, still on YouTube, still out there in the public, able to lie and manipulate and then find ways to abuse their next victim.